This session today is specifically meant to transform the people that are visiting your websites. So you managed to get some traffic and activity onto your websites. How can we then solidify them into real humans that you can actually treat into your practices? Because it's good to have an online presence, but as practitioners, you need a physical presence because you need bodies to actually heal and treat. So you know me. So when is the let me see. Okay. When you see this slide, it should be fairly recognizable as to the agency, which has been, we have been attending quite a few webinars together already with most of you. So we are an SEO agency specializing only in optimizing websites. We don't do anything else. And our target, our client is usually doctors, medical practices, private practice owners, and we have been running here in the UK for a while, and me doing this job for way too long than I can say. So we have been seeing quite a lot of changes into the industry and the various things. Now, today's session will use a fictional character because it's nice sometimes to think about real stories. So I didn't want to use any real client stories. I made up a story. So let's imagine that we're looking at the story of one fellow clinician, dermatologist, private practice based here, not too far from me, West London. So what are the challenges that she's going through? She has built a website. It's really nice. It's something that she's proud of and she shares with people gladly. What happens then is that she is not immediately seeing a translation of the online practice and visitors, the hits that she's got on the website into patients that she can treat into the practice. So she wants to fill this gap, which is technically called conversion, how to convert more website visitors into buyers, clients, in your case, patients. So we set to analyze where are the things that might be blocking this conversion, this transition. And there are four main key things when this doesn't happen. It can be a lack of trust. It can be there is not enough engagement. Relevance might not be ideal, or the user experience just isn't working too well. And we will go through these one by one in detail, saying how we can improve it. Obviously, we are making up a story. So what you see here is not a real website. There are some placeholders, lorem ipsum, things made up, but I tried to mock up something that you can think how it applies to your case. So try to use some creativity and imagine it applying to your website and your specific unique needs. So let's start with number one, trust. Now, as clients, so before being practitioners, you are clients of other services and products. What mainly builds trust is the inherited trust that when somebody is recommending a service or a practitioner to you, you tend to trust the person, and then automatically there is a transference of trust onto the person that is being referred. So when in absence of a real person, a relative, a friend, someone who is introducing you the person, in absence of a real referrer, then we kind of by proxy trust other people's recommendations, which is what happens with reviews. And there are many ways that a medical practitioner can collect reviews. There are external platforms, and Google here is the first one that comes to mind, A, because we are doing SEO, and B, because it's really something that now even AI tools are using a lot to pick information on. So when somebody's asking ChatGPT, can you find me the best orthopedic surgeon near me or in West London? What they do is looking at reviews and clients' feedback. So external platforms, Google, but even Top Doctors, there's plenty of these kind of platforms that aggregate results and collect reviews. But also obviously on your website. Now, this is the making up of a false website that doesn't really exist, but to show you how this can be embedded onto the website. And the interesting factor, aside from the fact that there is this sense of peer-to-peer validation when somebody is referring, is also the fact that the words that your patients use to describe you when they are making a review are definitely different, are usually different from the ones that you would use to describe yourself. A, because we usually don't like to in our own horn, so we tend to shy away from self-proclaiming our greatness. So patients, sometimes they can be really, really grateful and they can say things in a way that is so passionate that we would never be able to do it. But also because they would use different terminology or a different series of things that for them was important, and you wouldn't necessarily have thought. So peer-to-peer validation means that a prospective patient hearing from another patient saying, well, I was so scared about that procedure, but if I knew that it was so easy and so non-invasive, I should have done it way before, and I would like to recommend you to take into consideration this is something that can change the quality of your life. It's really, really crucial because they can resonate with each other. They're at similar stages. So absolutely keep in mind that you need usually to actively, proactively ask for these things, and it needs to be a part of a process, because if you rely on you remembering to ask your patients for a testimonial, it won't happen because you have so many other things to do. And marketing, these kind of things, they are not taught in medical school. And obviously there are many other things that you have to deal with on a daily basis. So these things need to be embedded in a process, and there needs to be some sort of automation, if you want, that takes it away from your mind so that you can focus on what actually matters, which is treating your patients, and make sure that you regularly keep proactively asking for this kind of feedback. So aside from reviews, another thing that really contributes to creating trust is you disclaiming all of your titles. And this has become particularly important now with something that Google calls EEAT. And you may have heard me saying this or other people in the team in previous webinars, because it's so important. It's something that now is really at the core pillars of how SEO functions, that we cannot afford to forget it. It stands for expertise, experience, authority, and trustworthiness. These are things that, as doctors, with your studies and your knowledge, definitely you have, but you need to explain it and express it onto the website. So don't shy away from listing all of the research titles, places where you have been collaborating, and different levels of practice. So it needs to be on the website, possibly on the about page, on the home page, in places in which the patients will check, because it will contribute to creating trust in the patient. But even more important, in Google, because Google will be able to push higher ranking of a website when there are all of these trust signals. So make sure that all of these elements are explained in detail. And it's not like boasting, it's not vanity, it's not bad to be able to really explain everything in detail. It's something that helps. So we're doing it from a service point of view and not from a selfish vanity point of view. This is just an example. Again, we are doing it as a placeholder, but all of the things that you can mention, think of it and make sure that you are laying them down clearly onto your website. Another thing that definitely helps building trust are the case studies, and we can definitely anonymize them, so we don't have to name names. We can keep it as generic and vague as possible, but explaining what was the ailment, the condition, the symptoms, what was the treatment, how it worked, the before and after, the client testimony at the end as well, if you want. All of these is invaluable content, again, for both the user that will find themselves reflected because they say, yes, I got the same thing. I got, okay, now it makes sense. I understand the story of this person, like we're doing now with storytelling in the end. It's the way that as humans we have been learning since we were living in the caves through stories. So you're here telling the story of your patient, and you're not the hero of these. You are the supportive element. The hero is the patient. So you're telling the story of the patient and what they went through and how, with your help, they went to the happy ending. So definitely this builds trust and contains invaluable keywords. Again, also if we're thinking from an SEO and AEO point of view, artificial intelligence optimization. Now, after trust, another thing that can prevent someone to becoming a patient when they are onto your website is they're not engaging with the site. What does it mean they don't engage? Basically, we can engage with a website through, first of all, the content, the actual material that is on the website. So we need to think, first of all, from the patient's perspective. So play a sort of game, sit yourself in the patient's chair and think, what would you want to find in there? Now, when you're working with somebody like us, we can easily find it because we look into the Google's database and we find out what people search for. But otherwise, even in on your own, in your own space, you can play this sort of role-playing game and think, I'm the patient, I need my own treatment, I'm my own possible practitioner, which things would I need, what would I want to find in terms of content. And when you have defined it, you need to lay it out on the page in a way that doesn't bore. We're talking about engagement, that doesn't bore the reader to death. So no long blankets of content, because we just glaze over, we don't really read. There are researches being done by the user experience focus groups, and they found out that we don't ever read really pages. We scan them vertically, we stop, our eyes stop at the images, the subheadings, the bullet points. And then if this looks interesting, then we may start reading the finer, the smaller elements. And never mind, it's a placeholder here, but it something that we do. So if the page doesn't make us stop, but doesn't make us want to learn more, it's wasted content. So make sure that your content here is laid out in a way that entices people, that makes them want to read, that makes them curious. And call to actions. You may have heard me banging about call to actions for a while, and I will keep on doing it because it's really important. We see so many people publishing invaluable content on their websites as the most generous thing they do, and then it's just there. They don't ask for anything in return. Now that you've given them something, it's only just fair that at the end you invite them kindly to perform an action, and the action can be check this link, read this relevant page, this relevant content, or book an appointment, send an inquiry, share your questions with me, ask them to do something. Otherwise, you got one chance to interact with them and you wasted it. So at the end of the page, if you think of all the traffic that these pages are generating, those are all real human eyeballs that you need somehow to engage and keep and move, hand holding sometimes through the website, deciding the flow, the user flow through the user journey through the website. Another thing that really helps with engagement, and we were talking about this when we were talking about these swapping chairs and you sitting in your patient position, is thinking about the questions that they would ask more often. And it's something that helps now more than ever because the AI tools, they have this kind of conversational structure. So anything that is structured as question and answer is very easy for them to pick up. So if you can include this kind of element possibly in each of your pages, in your treatments, in your conditions, that would be really, really helpful. And with your knowledge, having been running practice for so long, you can definitely find a million and more, even without access to SEO tools and keywords, even just out of your personal knowledge, you could jot down so many possible frequently asked questions, just thinking of all the things that your patients have been asking you in the past. You set a timer and you give yourself 5 minutes and you start jotting down the things that they've always been asking you. There's so many that you can think. And the fact that they are frequently asked questions automatically makes them hot topics. So they are by nature good topics, even from an SEO perspective. Not only your prospective patient can relate to that, because those are frequently asked questions and they always more or less ask the same. So you can expect your prospective customer to have that kind of questions in mind. But those are questions that very, very possibly they are searching online as well. They're searching in Google as well. So if you have them on the website, then Google can make a match. Somebody's searching for this. Oh, I have an answer on the site. That's a good match. I will show it as a result. And that definitely generates engagement because I feel like I'm finding my answer here. So this is really helping me move forward. Another thing that really helps with engagement are videos, and you can have them in many ways, even if you don't feel very comfortable being in front of a camera like this. At the beginning, no one is. It takes a little bit of practice in the end, but it creates this kind of connection. And even if you don't really want personally to be in the video, there are many different ways of thinking about embedding video content onto your pages, with some caveat being make sure that it doesn't slow down the page speed, the site performance. So from a technical point of view, video can be slightly tricky, but definitely the benefits outweigh the risks. So we need to make sure that it's done in a way that doesn't damage you. but there is an absolute advantage in having it. Pop-up banners, they're one of the most commonly advised things to do in terms of creating engagement onto a website. I wanted to share it here because there are some slight side effects to doing this. Google doesn't really like it, particularly when they are intrusive. So we've all seen it, and the first reaction that we have when we see this is trying to find the X to close it, because it pops into our face. We are kind of used to it. It's like the cookie banner consent. We use it and we immediately search. It's becoming second nature. Our brains have been rewired by these tools, but it's becoming second nature. We are trying to find the X to close it. When this doesn't happen and people struggle to close these things because they have made them in a way that isn't really too user friendly, they might leave the site altogether, and Google will not appreciate it. So it may damage the way it's ranking. So there are advantages. There can be advantages, particularly if these things are timely, they're really effective. It's really something that you think from the patient perspective, it can make a difference. It can really make a change. Say, I don't know, it's a sort of awareness month and you really want to send something. It shouldn't be a sort of forever thing, because after a while we all get a little bit desensitized towards these things. So it's something that needs to be done with a pinch of salt. Now, going on to the third element here, so relevance. Is it relevant? I mean, the content and the information that they find into the website for what they wanted. Now, this is SEO's prime playground and prime field. So we know that there are things like keywords, and not all keywords are born equal. So there is many ways of phrasing it. You may have heard the long tail keyword as a word that is explained. Basically, this is a longish tail keyword because it's made up by 4 elements. And again, this is just a makeup sort of example, but to give you an example from another industry, let's say, for example, we're talking about shoes. If you try to rank your website for the word shoes, A, would be virtually impossible because you are trying to compete against everyone, but also because you're trying to compete against somebody who's not really a competitor, because the search intent, the intention behind this word can be so many and so different. Say, for example, you've got a shop, you're selling shoes, and people may be searching for the history of shoes, the shoes in the world, many different reasons they're not buying the product. And as you add more elements, more carriages to the train, that becomes a little bit more defined. Say you're adding white shoes. Now you're probably not talking about the history of the shoes or the shoes in the world you're talking about, but still you might be talking about wedding shoes, you might be talking about sports shoes. It's still a little bit vague, so you're still maybe competing against somebody who's not a real competitor. You add another element and you say it's tennis shoes. Oh, okay, now we've cut out, we're adding elements to the tail, we're cutting out some competitors that weren't competitors, and we are refining the user journey, user intent. See where we are going. The more elements you add, if, for example, in the end you're having white tennis shoes brand X, size Y, this is as defined as can be, and when somebody is searching for that, they literally have their credit card sitting next to the mouse. They're ready to buy. So the more defined the keyword is, the more defined the search intent is, and volumes shrink. So there is something in SEO that's called volume of search, which is the popularity of a keyword, how popular it is. And it can sometimes be a sort of vanity figure, like people chasing thousands of volumes of search, which usually is way too vague. So sometimes the tiny niche keyword and how this applies into your case is the specific of the treatment that you're deploying, not necessarily calling it with the very academic name, because people usually, normal patients, they use different words. So the name, the exact name of the operation or the procedure or the surgery is not probably what they would be searching for. They would be searching for the most humanly, commonly way of describing it that they might have heard, or sometimes they also search for the specific name because that's what they have been told, what they heard, and they want to know more. So that's the position which you kind of have to weave together two keywords. But being niche, being specific means being relevant, and that is what you want. And going into high intent, as in as laser focused as can be for every single page, because every page needs to be focusing one and one only search intent. What is the best search intent behind that page? To attract ideal clients, because we can try and focus as well a little bit into who uses certain kind of expressions that can also kind of qualify a little bit the audience. An element that you see here is geolocalization. And when we are talking about medical practices, unless your kind of practice is something that can be delivered online, and that is usually mainly therapy, so counseling, psychotherapy, those are the only few ones that can sometimes be delivered virtually at a distance. Otherwise, you need real human bodies to treat. So you need a proximity to the point of search, to the patient. The patient needs to be able to come to your practice, and the localization, the geolocalization element in the keywords becomes extremely important in that case. So making sure that the patient knows from the search point, from the search moment where you're based, that can help you rank easily, not try to outrank competitors, other practitioners. They're not really your competitors because they're somewhere else. So that makes it much, much more laser focused and appropriate and relevant for your patients. Finally, the last one that we are considering that might be holding back patients into converting, and prospective patients into converting and becoming your patients into the practice from visiting the site, is if the site is not providing them with a good user experience. And first of all, we need to consider how they are using the site, because sites are things that now can be utilized in many different ways. We can navigate a site from a lot of different devices now, and it is fundamental to test on many different devices. And whoever is looking after your website, or if you're doing it on your own, there are tests that can be done to see how fast it loads. There are page speed tests that you can run, and a slowly loading website is something that Google doesn't like, and patients even less. You know it because you are a user of many websites every day. If they don't load very, very quickly, you close them almost instinctively and move into somebody else's website. So this needs to really work seamlessly. No broken links. Every page needs to function the way it should. It needs to be easy, intuitive, because you're in a rush and you're trying to do 3 things in the same time and thinking about yet another thing. So it needs to be so easy and so intuitive that it's obvious. And there is a silly kind of test that we used to advise, and it was called the grammar test. And it's like, if your asking your grandmother or an elderly neighbor, anyone you know, to try and perform an action on your website. So we know about patients or possible users, they're really not tech savvy. I don't know, I'm thinking about my dad, he's 85. So there are those people that you know that struggle a little bit. Those are the best kind of test users, because you ask them, can you perform an action on this website? The most important action, like book a consultation with me, send me a message, call me up, find where I am on the map. If they struggle, that's a big red flag, because you need to see what they do and how they work for you. Your websites are second nature. You know them and you know where to find everything, but you need to see them through somebody else's website, particularly if you're working with patients in demographics that might not be really well tech savvy. So you need to make sure the navigation is intuitive and fast and smooth, seamless from any kind of device. Price points are really important, because as patients, both if they're coming through an insurance, private insurance, if they're coming as private patients, they will want to find all of the pricing options in a clearly understandable way. And you can just give an indicator of how it starts from, but the more defined, the more detailed you are, the more immediately you can create the connection with your prospective patient, because they might have a wrong idea as if they cannot afford it, and actually they could, or they can't just decide, okay, this is something that now I need to know how it is like, and I can structure it and I can budget for it. So it's a strong possible indicator of user experience, and you know it in your own industries. You would need it if you're a user of websites. Any sort of support that you want, you will try to understand how much it is, first of all. Same thing, we were talking about the grandma test. Booking an appointment, how easy would it be? And finding out where you are, in which hospital, in which location, in which day, because sometimes it can be complicated for you. So imagine how complicated it can be for your patient. So make it as easy and simple as possible, with nice possible interactive Google Maps, so that they can pinpoint the distance, how to commute, how to reach you. Make it really simple to see when you're there, your opening times, and your available options to be contacted. If there is any sort of product that you're selling, and it can be treatments, they're packaged as products, it's becoming more and more popular onto medical websites as well, to package up consultations and treatments, things that you want to offer to your patients. If you have anything like this, obviously this is just a made up kind of example. Imagine it is something that you're having to offer tests and different options to the patients. Make sure that it's clearly organized and easily browsable in terms of categories and tags and all of the things that can very quickly send them into the point that they want straight away. So the final thing, some of you have already seen this. So if you would like to see how your website is doing, and if there are any blockers that we can identify in any of these main 4 points, as in we could be given better trust signals. The engagement with the pages could be better. The user experience, the relevance of what they can find you for at the moment. These are the keywords that they're finding you for. This is how you're ranking. Actually, it's not really well defined, it's a little bit vague, or these are some big blockers they're holding back Google, and they're probably holding back your users as well. So we can run these tests for you completely free of charge, just to give you a personalized look into your website and seeing how the site is at the moment. Now that you know the things that might be holding it back, we can see in detail as to what regards to your example, what could be there to be improved. Now, I promised we would leave 15 minutes approximately for frequently asked questions. As always, in the last slide, you have the contact elements to reach out if you have questions. If there is anything else that pops you to mind, I know there are many of you who booked the webinar and know that they wouldn't be able to be here live because they have patients to treat, and they will be watching the recording later today, whenever works. You've got my contact details here, so feel free to send an email, send a message, and we can have a discussion, we can talk, and go through each and every question that you might have in specific. But for the ones of you that are here live today, and thank you so much for joining live and being live here today. Do you have any questions? Is there anything that we discussed so far that you would like to know something more about, something that you would like to ask? It can be relevant to the content, or it can be something that pops to mind and you just want to ask for feedback about. Or something that stood out for you from these, something that you heard and it makes sense and you want to try and apply to your specific case. Hi, Helen.
Hi,
Lovely to
Sophia.
see
Hi,
you.
how are you?
So nice to see you. I'm really
Good,
well.
good. Thanks very much for the presentation. I was quite interested in your piece about putting prices on the website because I go to lots of different business coaching meetings, and there's such different opinions about whether to put the prices on the website or not. Some people saying that you should just write the value that you're providing and a ballpark sort of kind of consideration. Some people say it's far better to actually put the exact amounts on there. I'm curious as to your thoughts.
Well, with medicine in particular, there are some fairly regular amounts that you charge for the specific sessions and appointments and treatments, but there might be some varying factors that can make a price different. So as always, the most important things with these is clarity and transparency. So your prospective patients would really appreciate your clarity and transparency and saying, these are some ballpark figures. These are some usually standard amounts that you can expect, but the price might vary because of these specific conditions. So in some cases, they would feel reassured that if there is a difference in the estimate that you make, it's not because you are having some false claims on the website, but you are actually disclaiming that some things may vary, and these are the things that can cause the difference, the variation. But I would definitely advocate having it, particularly now with AI tools and people searching on ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Gemini. They usually ask for pricing. And if your competitors are not putting their prices up there, the tools will need to find the pricing on somebody. So if you're one of the few who does, you're automatically getting a spotlight and your results will stand out more. So, and it's human nature. We tend to search for at least an idea of how much it is. I don't know, my child has got this kind of thing. I need an investigation. How much will it be? And you have a little bit of an idea at least.
Yeah, thanks. Now I do put the prices on the website, but I'm always wondering whether I'm.
Yeah.
But I do. I put the exact prices for allergy treatments on the website.
And it already gives an idea as to the type of practitioner that you are, with the transparency and the trust. Again, we were talking about trust, feeling that there is nothing that you're trying to hide. This is you, what you see is what you get, and the information that you see is what actually will happen. It creates a bond of trust from the very beginning.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking and breaking the ice, because asking
I
the
know. I
first
thought I would.
question is always the hardest. Who's the next brave one who's asking a question? Is there anything in particular that you think, okay, this is cool, this is something that I will bring forward and I will try to do? I don't know, I will add all of my titles, I will add all of my specializations into the about page because I think that the description could be expanded, it could be giving some more detail, or I don't know, I will try and get my elderly neighbor to test my website from mobile. Is there anything as an actionable new action that you'd like to try? Hi,
I
Frank.
think I think a new action is the frequently asked questions, which is not something I'd thought of before. So I'll reflect on that.
We love it. You know why? Because I mean, we think from an SEO point of view, but we also think from a patient point of view, because for various reasons we've all been involved in being patients at various stages in our lives. So the questions are usually the embryos of blogs, if you think of it as a blog post, as an article, because it starts with a hot topic, with something that someone is asking. So by nature, that's the very best kind of content that you can have on the website, because it's not about you, it's about them, it's about the patients. So you're putting yourself physically in their role and thinking those questions, all the why, how, when, where, how many, how much, all of these kind of questions, you can give a very brief kind of explainer. But usually the idea then is adding a read more that points. So if you only can read 2 lines, this is a very short answer. But if you want to read more, and particularly when health is involved and health treatments are involved, usually people want to read a lot and they want to document themselves as much as possible in basic terms that don't scare them, that kind of resonate with their emotional state at the moment. So empathizing, less academic sometimes, kind of language more empathetic and human. But at the same time, they will read a lot. With medical content, we see how prospective patients are really eager to devour the information that they can find and grateful when they find it and it's clear. It immediately creates this kind of bond. So the very short answer is what, for example, AI will take, because that's this kind of tennis match activity in which there is a question and answer given, but then always expanding and moving into giving all of the explainers and the why with your unique approach. So something that people might do, for example, is resort to AI generated content that will usually churn out something that is generic. It's vanilla content. It's something that is taken a little bit from the existing sources online. What moves the needle with SEO, particularly now, we were saying the EEAT, expertise, experience, authority, and trust. So you doing the procedure in a certain way is because of your experience. So it's not something that AI, ChatGPT could create in the way that you can do. So if you can convey out of your knowledge into the page, the reasons and the way. So after doing this job for 20 years, I've come to the conclusion that the procedure needs to be done in this way because this is my angle, this is my approach, this is my belief, and I've seen it working timelessly. So this is something that nobody else can replicate because it's your own lived medical experience. And that is something that moves the needle now, because in a sea of same-seas and people who more or less publish the same content, that is something that is unique and cannot be found anywhere else.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Anything else? I got one question before we did this, but somebody messaged me on LinkedIn and said they couldn't join because they were having practice and they wanted to say, they wanted to ask regarding, and they will be watching the recording after. So they wanted to ask regarding the articles on the website, because there are these AI overviews now. They're appearing on Google. Whenever somebody is searching for something, we see this kind of pre-digested big summary of the answer. And now we don't even need more times than not to actually go into the website, because we find the answer, it's out there, and we are all in a rush. We don't, until a year ago, if we were searching for something informative, we would see a blue link, a result on Google, and if we wanted the answer, we would click on it, open the page, and read the answer. Now we've become lazy because we find the answer. Sometimes it's enough, and we don't even need to click into the link, which is something that we've all unfortunately witnessed. It drop everywhere into traffic on websites, because Google is trying to hoard all of the traffic into itself and having these zero-click queries in which people don't actually then go into websites. So the question was, is there really still a point in doing blogs now that the answer is already out there? And the answer is yes, but because we know that things have changed, and the kind of intent that drives people to find something can be informational, transactional, or commercial, navigational, or local. So for the informational in particular, sometimes we are losing out on traffic. We have been there, we wrote an article, and the traffic to the article is dropping because people are finding the answers out there. But there is a but. If they don't open the link, at least they will see that the source of knowledge, if you're picked up to be in that featured prominent position in the AI overview, is you, which is an incredible boost in brand awareness, because they will see that the answer is provided by a strong endorsement of your brand. And as doctors, now we are kind of becoming brands as well, because there is an element into the branded search term of your name and your practice name. So it's a strong advertisement of the name of the practice straight away, even if we are paying it off with traffic. We're getting less traffic, we are getting more popularity and brand awareness. At the same time, if, as we were saying now, particularly for medical industries, people want to know more and they actually navigate the page, then onto the page, you can connect through the website. Because before SEO, people used to enter the website from the home page and navigate it through the various links. Now they can land as a landing page into a secondary lateral page. So they don't enter through the home, they enter through this sort of treatment page or condition page. That's where they first meet your website. And from there, you can connect them through other things that you want them to know, because this is related to this. And you might also want to consider these other possible diagnostics. So if you get to the traffic and it's not just the tiny answer that they want, that's your choice to try and guide them into the journey with you. So yeah, that was the question. And again, if there are other questions and you're watching this after, feel free to pop them and we can keep discussing, or even you, if you think of something later, because sometimes the question doesn't come now, it comes like when you're walking your dog or when you're doing something that isn't this and you think, oh yes, now I didn't ask this, but this is really important for me. Feel free to send it and we can keep discussing.